Okay, y'all, so we're going to do a quick little factoring review. A couple of things to kind of keep in mind. Number one, there are multiple ways that you can think about some of these factoring problems. And number two, depending on how many terms there are in the problem, depends on how you actually go about factoring them, okay? So I'm going to show you a couple of different methods. The first thing that I want you to recognize is that out of these 6 problems, the first 5 of them anyway, only have 2 terms. And so what happens when you have 2 terms is that usually there's 2 different things or 2 different ways that you would factor them. One of them might be by doing a GCF, so taking out a greatest common factor. The other one is going to be where it's a difference of 2 squares. Now, these 5 are all GCF problems, so we're going to take a greatest common factor out. Back in the back, the last few problems, so these 3 right here that only have 2 terms, these are difference of 2 squares, and I'll show you how those work when we get back there, okay? All right, so let's go GCF first. So basically what you're looking for is what do these 2 terms have in common. Since they both have an X in them, you take that out and put it in front of parentheses, okay? So this is, GCF is basically distributive property backwards. So when you divide by X for this first term, you have an X left, and when you divide by X, you have a Y. So that if you were to go back in and do the distributive property, X times X is X squared, X times Y is XY, okay? If we did it again, if I look at these 2 terms have both a 2 and an X in common, so I'm going to take them both out, so 2X. And again, it's the distributive property backwards. So what would I multiply 2X by to get 2X to the 3rd power? Okay, or you can divide it out, so I would get an X squared. When I divide by 2X, I get just a 5 left. So that again, if I were to distribute, 2X and 5 makes 10X. Okay, sometimes it's really beneficial to take a negative out, especially when that first term is negative. Okay, so for a problem like this, you want to divide by -3, and since they both have an X, take a -3X out. So that's going to leave you with a +4, and then this, because it was a +3, when you divide by a -3, you're going to get a -1. Okay, which remember, 1's can be invisible. So you're going to have 1X left and then 2 Y's. And again, you can always check your answer just by doing the distributive property. Okay? So I hope that kind of helps with those. I'm going to leave these 2 blank for a reason. Hint, hint, wink, wink up there. Okay? Let's go take a look at this one down here. When you have a trinomial, there's usually one of 2 things that are going to happen. This is the kind where you look for 2 numbers that multiply and then add to get you the number in the middle. Okay, it gets a little bit more challenging when the number in the front of the X squared is not a 1, but I'm going to show you how those work. So we're just looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give you 6, that are going to add to give you 1, or I'm sorry, give you 7 in the middle. That's going to be a 6 and a 1, and so you write the 2 parentheses and you put X plus 6, X plus 1. So that if you were to double distribute, which you may have learned, or you may have been taught that it's called FOIL, okay? But when you double distribute, you get X squared, 1X. When I do this, I get a 6X, so there's my 7X. And then 6 and 1 makes 6. Okay? All right, let's go do that again. So on the back, okay, again, I'm just looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give you 7, that are going to give you a -8. And so, yeah, sometimes you have to watch your symbols and just be careful. And so this is going to be a 7 and a 1, and we want them both to be negatives. So X minus 7, X minus 1. Sometimes you don't want both of your symbols to be negative. You only want one of them to be negative. So if you take a look at this one, the two numbers that are going to multiply to give you 54 and that are also going to give you a 3 are going to be a 9 and a 6, but then you kind of have to decide and balance out what kind of 9, what kind of 6, because you want to get a negative 54, right? So is it going to be negative 9 and positive 6, or is it going to be positive 9 and negative 6? And one of those combos will give you that positive 3 in the middle. Okay, and yes, if you're already looking or thinking, it is this one. So you write x plus 9, x minus 6. And again, you can always check your answer by refoiling or double distributing. Okay, so x times x is x squared, negative 6x, 9x, and negative 54. Okay, so again, I'm going to leave these two open for you for a reason. Okay, let's go do these two down here at the bottom. Now, this is when it got really hairy, okay, when there's a 2 in the front. Now, I don't know how you were taught. I'm actually going to show you two different methods because some of you are going to like one of them, some of you are not, okay? And again, it doesn't matter at this point. In Algebra 1, it totally mattered how you did it. In Algebra 2, it doesn't. I don't care how you do it. You just need to get it, okay? And so whichever one works better for your brain, go with it, okay? Method number 1, or just the one I'm going to do first, you go ahead and put your parentheses down and you literally guess and check, okay? You guess and you check. You guess where the numbers are going to go, you guess what the factors are going to be, and then you check it by doing the distributive property and FOIL, okay? 2x squared is going to split up. The only way a 2x squared can split up is by a 2x and a 1x. And since this is your first term, you put them in as your first terms. Okay, so again, the only way this can split up is a 2x and a 1x. And so you put them in. Then you go to the 7, and again, we're just guessing and checking where the numbers are going to go. Okay, so we're going to go to the 7. The only way you can break a 7 up is by 7 and 1. What you don't know is which one goes where. Does the 7 go here? Does the 7 go there? Okay, is it 7 and 1? Is it 1 and 7? And that's where you're guessing and checking. If I put the 7 here and the 1 here, and I go to check my FOIL, okay, 2 and 7 is going to give me a 14x. 1 and x is going to give me a 1x. And 14 plus 1 gives me that 15. So I guessed correctly. Okay, here's where it can mess you up. And that's when you have multiple choices. Okay, so if we look at this one, I'm going to do guess and check. So for this one, again, I'm going to write my parentheses. Okay. Now, 6x squared could be 2x and 3x, or it could be 6x and 1x. We're not sure, right? So you're trying to multiply. Again, these are your first terms. They're going to multiply to give you 6x squared. The last two positions in the parentheses are going to give you this negative 4. And this negative 4 can be a positive 2 and a negative 2. It could be a positive 4 and a negative 1. It could be a negative 4 and a positive 1. So sometimes guess and check doesn't work out quite as nicely and as quickly as it does over here. Okay, now if I were to just guess and check, by the way, this is how I learned back in school. It took me a long time to figure out this kind, okay? But if I were to guess and check, I would start with 2x and 3x. I don't know why, I just would. And I know that I'm trying to get a 5, and I want my signs different, so I'm looking for them to subtract. So if I put a 2 and a 2, I'm going to get a 4 and a 6. That's not going to be a 5, so I'm thinking it's got to be 4 and 1. Ooh, I'm seeing it. I'm thinking this is going to be a 4, because that's an 8. And this is going to be my 1. That's a 3. And in my little teeny tiny brain, an 8 and a 3 makes a 5. Okay, so now I just have to play with the signs. I want a positive 5, so I want a positive 4 and a negative 1. Some of you are really good at this because you're really good at a number game. I'm not as good at the number game. And so there's actually another method that you can do. And I learned this method when I was teaching over in Arizona about 5 years ago, and I love it. I don't know why no one thought of this before, but it is amazing, okay? So what you do with this, you have 2x squared. I'm just going to write the problem down again. So what you do with this one, with this method, okay, is that you multiply 2 times 7, and you get a 14. So I'm going to put 14 up here, and at the bottom of my x, I'm going to put the number that's in the middle. Okay, so once again, 2 and 7 is 14. Then over on the sides, just to help me get it set up, I'm going to put my 2x in each one of these, okay? And you're not splitting it up to 2x and 1x. You write 2x and 2x, okay? Now you start going. So what two numbers multiply to give you 14 that give you 15? Those numbers are 14 and 1. And then check this out. This is what is just brilliant about it, okay? 2x plus 1 is this parenthesis right here. And so that's what you write, 2x plus 1. If I take 2x and 14 and I reduce it like a fraction, I'm going to get 1x and 7, and that's this parenthesis right here. Okay, I'm going to do that again and show that to you again because I know that was kind of fast. So 6x squared plus 5x minus 4. I'm going to draw an X shape. I'm going to multiply 6 and negative 4, so 6 and negative 4. It's going to be a negative 24. And I'm going to put 5 down here at the bottom. Then I'm going to write my AX here, 6x and 6x. And now I just have to find numbers that multiply to give me negative 24 that are going to add to give me a 5. Okay, and I know that those numbers are positive 8 and negative 3. Now all I'm going to do is reduce these like fractions. So 6 and 8 I can divide by 2, and I'm going to get a 3x and a 4. That's that parenthesis, so 3x plus 4. And then I'm going to reduce this like a fraction. So if I divide by 3, I'm going to get a 2x and a 1, or a negative 1, and that's this parenthesis here, so 2x minus 1. Okay? So again, it's totally up to you. If the guess and check works for you and you can get it really fast, go with it. If you can't, then try this X method thing, okay? I'm actually going to go do this next one with you again and only leave one of them for you, but I just want you to see how it kind of works one more time, okay? I'm not even going to bother 20, holy bananas, we're looking at 20 and 1, 2 and 10, 5 and 4. I could be here all day trying to guess and check, and I don't have time for that. So I'm just going to do the X method and set it up. 2 and 20 is 40. I'm going to put my middle term at the bottom, so negative 13. 2x goes on either side. Numbers that multiply to give me 40, that give me negative 13, are going to be a negative 8 and a negative 5. That I'm good at figuring out. Those I'm pretty good at. And then I just reduce like fractions. So this becomes a 1x minus 4, or just an x minus 4. And then this side becomes 2x minus 5. Okay? All right, I know that I mentioned to you earlier about it could be a difference of two squares, and that's what this one is. So these are going to work out perfectly. You're going to literally divide it evenly into two parentheses with different signs. So you square root this one to an x, square root that one, you get plus 10 minus 10. Same thing with this. I'm just going to square root them because they're square rootable. So when you split it up evenly, 3x and 5, you get 1 plus 1 minus. Okay? The rest of this is yours to do if you want some extra credit.